an authorisation with Google Drive, which I don't know if any. I had a job a couple of years ago where I was trying to do this and it hurt my brain. So I'm looking forward to hearing Ash's story. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think coming from Hakeem's sort of talk about the actual sort of depth of the language and something just practical use of Perl. And this is something, basically a problem I came across that I wanted to solve. And it's a bit about just the short journey I took to actually sort of get to the bottom of the problem. So we've been using spreadsheets on Google Drive. This was the first time we were getting information from a certain amount of data to drive the system I was developing. We needed it to be data manipulated and entered by people within the company and also agents outside. So Google Drive worked fine for us. I'll show you what I mean here. So typical Google Sheet, a little bit of data in it. This is okay for the moment. We may not use it in a year's time, but it's been working fine for now. So yeah, and I've vaguely touched on this before in Perl, but apart from the Google the spreadsheets, I was also looking at, because I work on the SEO side in Gazuba, looking at manipulating the Google Search Console webmaster tools, also using the API. So I'll do, basically this is mostly a live demo, fingers crossed. Let's see about what I'm going to do to try and get this up and running. So first example is using OAuth to give them the client ID and getting user authentication to get into their data. This is all my personal Google account at the moment. So basically, this is the Google API console. So what we normally do is we have to create a project. And I'll put Ash LPM. So it says create a project, Ash LPM. So having done that, it automatically drops us in to say, well, you created the project. So this represents what our client's going to, this is our client's ID now, the project. What we're going to use it for, which APIs we're going to use it for. So I'm going to look here for type in search and we'll see Google Search Console API. So this demo isn't initially, this part of the demo isn't using the spreadsheets, this is using the Google Search API, just because that's the first thing I came into with this particular authentication flow. So having done that, I'll click enable. Okay, and it automatically prompts us to say, well, you can't use it on your project until you've created some credentials for it. So I'm going to go to credentials. This is like, I find it sometimes gives them a slightly different flow here. What I'm going to do is we're going to go back to the API manager. I'm going to go back to the project. Come on. Don't think that's what I wanted. Excuse me, man. Right, yes. So we go to the identity manager. So if I select my project here, right, okay, now, sorry, I've got myself a bit confused here. Bear with me. Credentials, sorry, that's what I wanted. Create credentials. So yeah, seems to be a slightly different UI. And going this way, this is the one I know it works. So what I'm going to do is create a OAuth client ID. And so this is for applications that might be entirely web-based, but we want to use it for a CLI-based tool in Perl. So we need to select application type other. Oh, hang on, project name. And I have to go through this. So I'm going to say Ash LPM is the product name. I think that's all we need for this. Now we can select application type other. I'll call it Ash LPM client. So what we've got back here is a client ID and a secret to use for our application. So what I need to do here is I'm going to cut and paste this out and move over to I've got some code set up here already. So I've got a little module here which I'm just going to dump in the client ID and credentials. I'll paste that in like so. And I'll paste the client secret in. So having done that, click OK. So that should be enough for us to start using the API. So what I've done is I've created a project to represent the client. I've enabled the Google APIs as the project, and I've created suitable credentials. So what it's given us back is the client ID. So it tells Google about the client and the secret, which is used to the key used to secure the help get the water token. So what we have to do now is we need to go and get access tokens in order to actually make the client do something with the API. So I'm going back to my, save my bit of code here. I've got a little bit of code called get token. And that's basically it's going to pick up the ID and the secret, and it's going to, so this is using a CPAN module for the webmaster tools that will help us to get a token. So if I run this, GWT get token, gives us a now that decides not to want to be selected very easily, so we'll try again. Okay. So this is asking for my permission to give access to this application. So if I allow it, in this case it gives us a code to go and use. So this is our, so I'm going to paste this back into my little module, which is our refresh token. The refresh token is valid until I choose to revoke it. I don't think this is the solution I would use for service-based applications where we want to, well, keep a, because it's based directly on my authentication. So now I've saved that, I can run my demo script, which is something here that is just going to access the Webmaster Tools API. It's going to try and get a little bit of information from from Google Analytics on my site, my website. So with a bit of luck, this should work. Except before I do that, I've actually got this wrong, so I've forgotten. I've got to paste this back into the client. Oh, you son. Right, that's, sorry, I'll have to redo that because I've just, unfortunately I have to redo that because I mistyped. Let's do that again. We'll get another refresh token. Paste it in this time. Right, so that's actually even what I wanted, which was the, so that returns me an access token which I could use immediately, and a refresh token which has got, which is valid until I say otherwise. So let me put this in again. Right. So hopefully now, if I run, right. And there's not a lot comes back here, but if you can't, if anyone, I don't know if you can see very easily over here, I'll expand it up, blow that up again. That's come back quite happily to say, here's your data that you wanted. So I can keep rerunning that now without having to go back and get any more authentication. Authenticate that again. Right. So I've done that, but I really want something which is basically a service key that we can, which is fairly permanent and doesn't require someone to go and have to authenticate against their own account. So and I've skipped a step in this. So this was just an example of a bit of code. This is what the code that's used to generate the URI we used to paste into the browser to go and get the token. I think this is testifies what Tom's saying about this being a bit, it's quite hard to get your head around how some of this works. So this assembles a URL which will ask Google for your consent to use the application. And there's a bit more code, which is then that is the. So basically, this is the call to user agent to then go back and get the refresh token that we can then use to get continual access to access tokens to use the API. So it does get quite hairy quite quickly. And so this is the bit of JSON we get back with the access token and refresh token. And I'll now speed on to the next section, which is how we start to use the service. That's the service side of this is basically how to get a service key out of Google. So we need to go back to the credentials manager, and this time we go to service accounts. So actually, I think what I want to do is go back to credentials again. So I'm going to go create credentials again. This time I'm going to select a service account key. So in this case, you need to avoid the first two. The type of account we want is just a new service account. It's not related to Google's app or engine or compute engine products. So let's select this. Service account name, I'm just going to say it's #LPM service. And I'm going to get the key back as JSON. So this is creating a secret file which needs to be kept secret because this has got the RSA key that's used to sign requests coming from the client. So it's been stored on the computer and that ends in 85.7. So having done that, okay, so that's been saved onto my machine. So what I'm going to do is move that from and I'm going to set it in the wrong place here. I need to go to the service. It's very loud. Move the old one. So I've got my service key in there now. So having got the service key in there, I need to take the name of this file. And let's see.
A couple more minutes, actually.
Yeah, so this is what we call the thing that is there, the payoff. So the name of that file I'm going to paste into my test code. I'll show a little bit more about test code work in a moment. So having done that, we now have a client app that's going to use this to get access to the spreadsheet. So I've got this all set up now, so hopefully if I just run my test code, well, it actually doesn't work, and it doesn't work on purpose. Because this is the bit that really tripped me up for an hour or two to work out. It's printing out the tokens and the auth header that's been sent to try and access the spreadsheet, but it can't get the spreadsheet for the simple reason that I own the spreadsheet, and in fact it needs to be owned by the service account, well, shared with the service account. So if I go into the service account, the service account key that we created before, just created now actually. I think if I go to manage service accounts, then I will get the account ID, which is basically an email address, and go back to the spreadsheet and share it with the service account. Don't need to notify anyone because it's not a real person. So now, a bit of luck, it'll tell us it's sending loads of tokens, and voila, it's got the information out of the spreadsheet at last. So these are some of the CPAN modules I used. to the standard Net Google Spreadsheets module, and the data which is based on access to that is based on the Common Data API, which has got a Moose role which we need to implement. This authentication uses JSON Web Tokens, that's the references to information about JSON Web Tokens, and some of the modules I've used. There are various modules that you can all get to the same. They all do work together. That's still fun trying to work out how to put them together in the right order. So that's what a JSON Web Token looks like. Wind up, yeah. I'll put this up online later. There's some sample code. The main problem I had was that to use the spreadsheet code with the data API, or there wasn't a connection between that to use the JSON Web Tokens. So it wasn't too much. Most of that is just you have to implement your sub here to add a header to any incoming requests that go out to Google. And this is just that's the details on how I implemented it. Again, it's just wiring up the web token builder. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry, we've run. I think that's